So, where are you from?
Originally from Mexico.
What was it like growing up there? Tell us as much as you can, by the way. What was it like growing up there? Oh. Well, let me start that over.
Growing up. You need to start over?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I talked in the middle.
Okay.
So all of these, try to go as like in depth as you can.
Okay.
Okay. What was it like growing up there?
Growing up in Mexico was amazing. I don't know. It was magical, I guess. I have a lot of fond memories of my family and being surrounded by everybody, and growing up with my grandparents and all my cousins and running around and playing games and sitting under the dark sky in the sand with my grandpa watching the stars as he told us stories every night. And so it was beautiful. It was good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What was the culture like there
The culture compared to here,
compared to here?
the culture in Mexico is very different than the culture here. It's definitely more, I don't know, traditional, I guess. We grew up so very religious, Catholic, and old school. Culture is all about family, your friends, and your community. So it's all about being there when someone needs you, and going to church every Sunday, and helping each other out, and making sure that you check in with all your loved ones all the time. And besides that, society-wise, I don't know. It's pretty much depending if you go into like the rural areas versus the city areas. You know, city is very much like here, so you live more of a secluded life, but of course you know a lot of your neighbors, and you usually have some family members that are constantly coming and going all the time. If you live more in the rural areas, then of course you live surrounded by all your family, because your little town will be all your family most of the time. So culture is very colorful. We have a lot of celebrations. We celebrate everything. We live big and play hard.
Did you see yourself living there forever? Growing up?
As a child, yes, I did. I always saw myself living there
Very nice.
with my grandparents and all my family and cousins and aunts and uncles, and yeah, never thought I would leave Mexico. So
What were the hardships of living there?
I would say the hardships were living without my dad. My dad had migrated to the United States, so as a child we didn't really have him there on a day-to-day. We saw him on Christmas and we saw him in the summers. So I would say, if anything, that was probably the only hardship. I don't remember any other hardships.
What was the magic of living in Mexico?
My family, my grandmother, the warm weather, the fruits, the freedom, the love of everybody, I don't know, just fitting in, not being an outsider, not being a foreigner, and just being with your own kind.
If you were to name 3 favorite things of Mexico, what are they?
Oh my goodness. Just 3?
Just 3.
Wow.
I mean, you could go on, but
Family, weather, landscapes.
it does have the most diverse landscape in the world, that's true. Okay. When you were young, what did you hear about the United States?
Well, we would hear from our family, so as the boys, as mostly it was boys that migrated at that time. It was when they would come home, so my father or my uncles, if they came home, they would talk about just hardships that they would suffer here. So not being equal, people mistreating them, how there was no sense of family. They didn't have their own culture. Life here was very different, and not really fitting in. And the food, missing the food. That was always the stories they would talk about. So, yeah.
So from those conversations, what was your perception of the United States?
I never wanted to come to the United States. So my perception was pretty much that, the stories that they would tell. I don't know. At the same time, they would also talk about how, there was a lot of opportunities here, and you could come and you could also do anything you wanted to, right? It was easier than over there, I guess. So, I don't know. As a child, I don't think I really necessarily thought of what the opportunities would be. Just more it was something distant, I guess.
And why did your family move to the United States?
Okay, well, like I stated before, my father had migrated. So my father migrated to the United States when he was 16. He comes from a very large family. My grandfather was pretty abusive at that time, I guess, as expected, I guess, how they were maybe at that time with the boys. I'm not sure. But I know when he turned 16, he didn't want to be there anymore, and he felt that he had to leave in order to make his own life. So he migrated, lived here, and we used to come in the summers to come and spend summers with my dad, because summers was warm and we weren't very fond of the coldness, like I still am not. And so we would come every summer to spend the summers with my dad. The last summer we came, my mom said she didn't want to be apart from my dad and didn't want to leave, and we decided to stay.
That's beautiful.
They decided to stay, and therefore we had to stay.
So once moving over, what was your first experience with an American? If you will recall, as far back as you can.
I actually have wonderful memories. Oh my, cry. I have, when we first moved, my dad had met, their names were Kip and Lita, and Kip and Lita treated my dad like their own child. So when we migrated here, they of course helped us to enroll us in school. They helped us, to settle us down, everything else, make sure we had what we needed. And they were just amazing people. If I remember the first thing, it was them. Yeah.
What did you like about moving?
To be honest, I liked some of the people that I was meeting, like Kip and Lita. Like we got to meet a lot of special people. I didn't like it here though. We used to live in the city, and I had a lot of friends and a lot of family, and we had music and life and everything else that you experience as a teenager, I guess. And moving here, we moved to a very rural area. We didn't have anybody near us for 45 minutes. So if we wanted to see anybody or go into town or go grocery shopping or anything, it was a 45-minute drive. So it was not just a change in country and change in language and culture, but it was completely different life. It was just a very different life that I came from to what I came to. So at the beginning, no, I didn't enjoy it. I remember being very angry at God, asking him why he brought me here. So, but
what, if you can name two, what things did you not like about the United States?
When I first moved here?
When you first moved here.
I think I missed my family. So not having my family here was one of the big things. And the other thing was knowing that teenagers were making fun of you because you didn't speak the language, but you didn't speak the language, but you could sense that they were being jerks, I guess. That, to me, that was very frustrating because I consider myself somewhat intelligent. I could sense that they were being, but I had no idea because I didn't speak the language, so I didn't know. Yeah. I would say the biggest one would be definitely the language barrier at the beginning. Now that I speak the language, I would say kind of knowing the racism that exists here, which I never experienced in my life before. So that's probably the worst for me. Just, I never experienced that before, and coming to understand it, I guess, or to understand why people act a certain way because you look different. I would say that's probably one of them.
What was your first experience with racism?
My English teacher. I remember not speaking the language and staying up till 2 a.m. with my mom, and we were trying to do homework. So we had a dictionary, and we would have to look up every single word in the dictionary to try to understand what my homework would say, right? So we would try and do homework this way. I remember turning in my homework late to her one time because, my mom worked and we obviously didn't have the time to get it done. And I remember me trying to explain to her that it was very difficult to get it all done because I didn't understand it all. And I remember her telling me, well, if you would just speak English, you wouldn't have this problem. And now I'm kind of thankful that she did that because she really upset me. And that was probably the first time I experienced something like that, or someone being hateful, that I promised myself that I would speak English to where people wouldn't necessarily know that I spoke a different language unless I told them.
And how old were you when you experienced that?
I was 17.
If you could know one thing about what it would be like to live here prior to moving here, what would it be?
Can you repeat that one?
If you could know one thing prior to moving here, what would it be? Like one thing about the United States.
I think try not to take it so serious. I think if back then I would have known not to take life so serious. It wasn't so important to get everything correct the first time. I think that's it.
All right. And last question. What or why do you stay in the United States?
So many reasons now. But first and foremost, my husband is from here. He is from the United States. My children are born here. This is their country. And I've came to love the United States. It's very different from home. I love the commodities and the comforts that the United States does offer. And now I stay for my children. I think that would be the only reason I do stay, is for my children.
If it weren't for family, would you stay?
No. I would be gone.
That's a wrap.
Sorry.